affirmation that we're going to use today is actually 3 affirmations in one. And it is, I am happy, I am healthy, I am prosperous. Can we say that 3 times? I am happy, I am healthy, I am prosperous. I am happy, I am healthy, I am prosperous. I am happy, I am healthy, I am prosperous. 3 very simple things. 3 things that every one of us would like to have and to be. And in truth, we are. We are happy, we are healthy, and we are prosperous. We may not realize it, we may not understand it, we may not manifest it, we may not see it in our demonstrated lives, but within us, we all have those 3 qualities, those magnificent qualities. It's interesting that they come in the order that they come, because it starts with what? Happiness, and then health, and then prosperity, and then it comes back full circle, because if you have all of those things, you certainly are happy. But whether you have them in demonstration or not doesn't mean that they don't exist, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. The question today is, what do I see? One of the things we know from the teaching is that what we see is not always the truth or true. But what we see is what we're able to see and hear with our human eyes and our human ears. The first part of this affirmation this morning is what? I am happy. And so we desire and need a reason to be happy. And if we don't have those needs and desires met, we decide we're not happy. And our happiness is not contingent upon something happening. Our happiness is not contingent upon something happening, just like our health and our prosperity is not contingent upon something happening. It is there always. It is a law and a reality and a truth. And that law and reality and truth are there regardless of circumstances and situations. One of the things we know is that everything operates according to laws. And we're talking about this month about what? Prosperity and abundance. So prosperity and abundance operate according to laws. And the laws, in a spiritual sense, are similar to the laws in a physical sense. So we talked about that last week. If you plant a seed, what happens? Something grows. In last week, we talked about a couple of scriptures, and we talked about the book of Genesis, and remember the story that we said? And one of the things I want you to remember this month is when we talk about and think about multiplying, in Scripture it says that God told Adam and Eve, right? They were the couple, to do what? Be fruitful and multiply. And what do we think that means so often? Go out and have babies, right? And that's only a little part of it. If we plant seeds of anger, what do you suppose happens? Anger, right? And how many seeds do you suppose we all have to spread around every day? Lots and lots of seeds, because the seeds aren't only the things we think, the seeds are the things we do and the words that we say. And so every thought, every word, and every deed is throwing a seed out there. What happens when you are not healthy, but the affirmation is, I am healthy? You still say, I am healthy. And what do you do when you say, I'm healthy? You plant the seed, thought, and the other thing that you do, what's the question? What do I see? What do I see? I'll give you a kind of a personal example, and it's pretty vivid. A few months ago, you all saw me, or over the last couple of years, saw me walking with crutches and walking with canes and walking in all these different ways. And so in my own process, and I think I've told you before in the meditation, I always use this term, we walk freely and easily, actually, because I use that as an affirmation for the last 4 or 5 years, because I've had this little physical problem that I've gone through. And in the midst of this physical problem, I could always see myself walking freely and easily. I could always see that happening. I could always see myself standing up without the cane or without the crutches. And so my kind of testimony and sharing with you is that this reality of seeing beyond appearances is not some kind of hocus pocus, Pandora box kind of a thing. It is real spiritual truth and reality. And it has to do, and the scriptures are filled with it, has to do with planting and harvesting. Planting and harvesting. Planting all things. Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. And He, I'm sure, met finances as well, but it wasn't only finances. Abundance has to do with consciousness. It has to do with the way that we think and the way that we see things. The question today is, what do I see? What do I see? The fact is, if you think about it, you've been taught, and we've all think, the first part of this affirmation, I am happy. In order to be happy, you have to have da-da-da-da-da-da, depending on who's talking to you. You know, if it's the advertisers, you have to have a car and good looks and something else. If it's your mom or your dad, they probably told you something that you had to have happiness. School teacher probably told you. Different people in your life told you all kinds of things that you needed to have in order to be happy. The reality is that you and I don't have to have anything to be happy. You're happy because that's your nature. That's what you're supposed to be. Now, if you're not, there may be circumstances and situations and reasons why, but then we're able to plant the seeds and to harvest. But what do we, last week, for those of you who weren't here, we talked about in the book of Amos, I think, the little bitty saying. And it's really not much to it except a lot of confusion. But the prophet was saying that one day, and when it says one day in Scripture, so often we think in linear time. So we think that the whole universe is moving according to a time plan, and someday this is going to happen. That's not what Scripture is talking about. One day always means one day you and I, in our own time and in our own way, are going to have this realization, understanding. One day. It isn't something off in the future. It isn't something we're waiting for. It is whenever we choose to have it. But this little passage, which was talking about the plowing, and said that the harvesters were there before the plow, before the seed was planted. And what does that mean? It's talking about our ability and need to see beyond what we see with our human eyes to the reality and truth of that which is. I could see myself stand. And I stood. And it is pretty dynamic stuff when you see the physical aspects of life coming forth in alignment with these spiritual teachings. And so this idea of prosperity and abundance comes from the way, as everything does, from the way that we think. Everything comes from the way that we think. Everything comes from perception. Everything comes from that which we can plant a seed of thought, and it will bring forth unbelievable things. What would happen if we had an abundance and prosperity consciousness, not about wealth, but about the solutions, abundance and prosperity of solutions? An affirmation that we use is, divine love is doing its perfect work in this situation right now. I know that based upon our teachings, that if we could get that to happen, that the seeds would be planted, and what would come forth? The solutions would come forth. Because the way that we think, the creative power of what we think, is so dynamically important. Prosperity and abundance is a matter of consciousness. A consciousness of prosperity and abundance in every aspect of our lives, not only finance, but in every aspect of our lives, brings forth magnificent and wonderful harvests. And it comes forth when we're able to see the truth. And the truth is, what's the affirmation? I'm happy, I am healthy, I am prosperous. The truth is, I am happy, I am healthy, I am prosperous no matter what. And if you look at Scripture, and if we read the Gospels, and if we look at what's written and what's taught, putting aside all the theology and the dogmas and the creeds, the reality and the truth is that that truth runs through the entirety of Scripture and the entirety of humankind, that understanding, that realization, that we are happy, we are healthy, we are prosperous. There are lots of reasons why we're not, or why we're not demonstrating it and showing it, but that's what it's about. And that's what Jesus was talking about when he said, I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly. And last week we talked about a little scripture story that we all know, which is the dividing of the loaves and the fish. The principle was they had little and they had a great need. And the solution to the great need was bring the little. What did they do? Blessed it. He blessed it. He broke it. And he gave it. and he gave it to however many of the disciples were there. They took it forth into the 5,000. They took it, broke it, kept some for themselves, and gave the rest. That was the principle. That was a principle in dynamic action. It was showing how the reality and the truth of this law and this principle operates. Giving is a process of planting the seed. Giving is a process of getting it out there and allowing ourselves to see truly and clearly that which we need to see. What do you see in life? What do you see in life? When you open the newspaper, what do you see? When you look around the world and listen to the news, what do you see? When somebody comes into your house or your room and is unhappy and upset and going on, what do you see? What do you see, really, truthfully? What do you see? Do you see the good, despite appearances to the contrary? Do you see the reality and truth of happiness, health, and prosperity, despite appearances to the contrary? And that's the key, to see beyond appearances. If health, happiness, and prosperity, happiness, health, and prosperity, if those things are not present, do you see them, even when they're not there? Because if we can see them when they're not there, we see the truth. And the truth can be manifested in our lives because we can plant the seed of that reality. But if we plant the seed of misunderstanding, if we plant the seed of belief in something that is not so, then that seed will come forth until we come to the understanding and realization of the truth, and the truth that will set us free. And the truth that will set us free is the understanding and realization. The good news is always that we are the children of God, created in the likeness and image of God, created in the likeness and image of our Creator, and endowed with the reality and truth of that Creator's being, which is to create in a positive and affirmative way. And that reality is that we are children of God, and as children of God, we have the limitless potential of all that we need to know, because, as we did in the meditation, we connect ourselves with the infinite intelligence and presence of God. And so that reality comes forth through our lives, and we are guided and directed in the way that we should go. So, you are happy, you are healthy, you are prosperous. And I see you happy, healthy, and prosperous, despite appearances to the contrary. Despite appearances to the contrary. And that is key to all of our understanding and demonstration of the truth that we teach, and that is so much a part of what we are all about, and can add so immeasurably to your life in abundance and prosperity. And the reality is that all of those things are there within you, limitless in their potential, in their abundant supply, and always available to every one of us. All right?